Hello, everybody. Just a quick heads up. I've heard a lot of people asking questions about the connections between the assignments. Now, hopefully I've done a little bit at least to answer some of those questions for those who have asked, but for those who have not, I did want to go over the exercises that I give people at the beginning of, given people since the beginning of class, the planning exercise and what's about to be shown to you guys, the tentative thesis, are designed to get you on a step-by-step move toward your essay, which is the literacy narrative. The literacy narrative, if you haven't had a chance to look at it in the folder, is essentially a narrative that focuses on why you feel about writing the way you do and providing a specific sort of context for that. The planning exercise is designed to say, hey, this is the story that I'm going to use. This should be from your life. It should be that moment that made you, and it's not just I liked it. It's not just I didn't like it. It can be a negative element. That's fine. But trying to find a representative event or person in your life that led you to feel about writing the way you do, or reading. I have given a quick outline of a sample that I might put together, and we'll walk through that in hopes of helping sort of show how that would work together. The story is a friend of mine, very shy, picked on quite a bit, Lyle Wheeler, in Mrs. DeLorme's reading class a long time ago. And you'll notice hopefully that these elements here are pretty straightforward, one line. I'm not going to spend a lot of time writing about that. I can tell you that already. And so what might happen is the what, because I have to tell the story, that's pretty much the story. I may go back and realize, oh, I need to talk more about Lyle. I may need to talk about the poem, for instance, if quite a few people I've spoken to have not read that poem. So I'm going to make sure that the audience has everything they need. But in terms of my interest and what I want to write about, the what and the why are where I'm going to draw most. So I go through that and I come up with a quick thesis. This doesn't have to be the next step, and it doesn't have to be the permanent thesis. The assignment is called a tentative thesis, a thesis that is not permanent by its definition. It can and should and is likely to change. So I'm just getting this down so I have a method by which I can focus my own ideas. It's not a great thesis, and I'm actually literally wrote that. It's not a great thesis by any stretch. It's not. It doesn't cover everything, but it gives me a place to start. So after I have a thesis, I need some evidence, and that's why I started doing this outline. I've got a plan, something about school, summary of the poem maybe. This is the lead into reading classes, and then specifically Mrs. DeLorme class. Again, I'm not beholden to this, but it's giving me some sort of structure. The event, I noticed that I wrote bored students are reading. That's going to be a part of it. That's not necessarily up here. Well, there it is. It's up there, which means that if it's up there twice, it's important. But you may find yourself in the outline completely adding something. Go with that. You can always add more to it because you can always take more away. I'm one of the writers that likes to have 5 pages when I need 2, so I can chip away everything I don't need. I only take the best of the stuff. So I get to Lyle, and you'll notice I got to describe Lyle, describe the reading, describe the effect that it had. The rest of the day is to finish off the actual finish of the narrative for me. I'm going to talk about how people's opinions of him had changed. And while those mean the same thing on the surface, the first one is, while Lyle suddenly became well-loved, so I've got specific ideas about people who wouldn't normally talk to Lyle or who are normally kind of just mean in general, actually is like coming up to him and talking to him about it. The conclusion for me is the power of reading, which probably needs to be up here. One of the things I always know when I write is my thesis tends to end up at the bottom of what I'm writing. The use of the outline makes my essay construction easier. It just gives me some structure. It gives me a place from which I can begin. Every writer, if they're going to do an outline, is going to vary. Even if you all turned in your essays and then went back and outlined them, they'd be different outlines because people are going to focus on different things. The stories themselves are obviously going to be different, but the methods by which they go about that are going to be different. If you're using a less structured approach, hold on to the notes so that method can still help. Just highlight all the stuff, all the evidence, because you can always go back and use those specifics in your essay to make it stronger. No one is going to be upset if you're using very specific information. For instance, if I don't describe Lyle, people probably won't get a sense of who he is. If I don't talk about the poem, people won't understand why that sudden outburst in his poem, in his reading of it, makes sense to me. Please be sure that you're sort of making sure the audience is in your mind. That's one of the ways those notes can do that. Those specifics help bring the audience in, because if you describe something, even if they haven't seen it before, they'll have a better understanding of what it is you're talking about. Our next discussion is going to focus on the drafting of the essay a little bit. And while it jumps ahead of the course schedule, people do tend to jump into that a little bit earlier, and I've already gotten some feedback that indicates that will be the case. So I'll switch it around a little bit. That's not a problem. The other thing to remember is that the writing process is completely fluid. As you guys are working on this assignment, one of the things you'll probably notice is that you're revising a paragraph as you're writing it. Or you're planning the next step. You're like, oh, I wrote this paragraph, and now I realize I have to write this. It's not all one step. You're not going to finish all of the planning in the first step. You're not going to be done revising at the end. You'll be revising there throughout. So the thesis assignment, and here's our link to the Raven if you want to read it. Some people, it's a really good poem. I like it. Some people wanted to hear it or see it, so it should be there, and I think there's an audio recording with it. The tentative thesis assignment, and this time I made it very clear, geared toward the completion of your literary narrative essay. I have included the prompt for the essay as people were trying to make sure they understood what was going on, so I'm just probably going to put that with all assignments here on out. I'll have the specific prompt, or at least enough of it so you guys can keep track of what's supposed to be going on. Requirements are just the thesis statement and 3 pieces of evidence from your notes. The planning exercise is a good place to draw from that, but from your notes that you are going to use to back up your thesis. I give some definition of the thesis down here, all the evidence, and a model to start. Right here, I should probably bold that. I'll do that now before I send that in to you guys. I feel this way about writing and reading because of this. And just fill in those blanks. It will not be the finished thesis, but it will be a good, solid place to begin, a place to get the idea down. So you can always have that idea incorporated into your body paragraphs. And again, you're not to the body paragraphs yet, and that's fine. This is just a tentative thesis, something to stick in front of you so you've got a guideline to write the essay. Its sole design is to help you focus the narrative. I call them raw materials when I'm writing. Those notes that you've taken, whether they're from personal experience or you're talking about going into research, those are raw materials. You need to make something out of them as part of the writing process. And this is just a method by which you can focus and do that. I do wish you guys the best of luck on the assignment, and if anybody has any questions, please let me know.